Alright, and welcome back to another episode of Catching Colorado. Today we're going to be tying up the RS2. This is a very famous fly, and I follow a lot of Tim Flagler's process here in tying this fly. I just think he always comes up with some things that can really benefit flies and some stuff I never would have thought of. So kudos to him, and Tightline Video if you want to go check out his. But let's go ahead and dive into this fly and get started. Now this pattern today I'm going to tie in a size 20. On my waters here in Deckers on the South Platte, these bugs are very small, but you could maybe tie it in a size 18. Just check what you have on your water and see what you think the size is best for your Trico hatches, but mine are very, very small. So this is a Daiichi 1110 dry fly hook in size 20, and we load that up in the vise, and then we're going to prepare some thread. I like to use gray here. Tim uses black. This is a UTC 70 denier. And we're going to start at about that 80% mark of the shank of the hook here, or about an eye length behind. And then I'm going to stop right here at the tip of the hook. And then we're going to cut out this tag end, but save it for later. Do not forget to save that. You'll need it here real soon. So once I put that in a safe spot, all right, my favorite part of any Trico is tying in these fibbits. These are a hairline mayfly tail, but they're just micro fibbits. They have really pointy tips. So I'm going to put them on the inside of the hook here and then bring up the thread to about halfway, snip those butt ends free, and just continue by closing down those butt ends onto the hook. And then we're going to work our way all the way back to where those tails start. Now we are going to grab our scissors. And I like to use one blade of the scissors just to kind of separate these a little bit. You don't have to go crazy here, but we just need a little bit of a gap so we can fit some thread through the middle. So I'm just kind of pulling the near side to me and pushing the other one to the other side. These fibbits are pretty strong, so you can kind of mess with them a little bit more than you could some other materials. They've got a little bit of elasticity to them, and they move pretty well without breaking. So once we've got those separated, which I do have now, we're going to go ahead and reach for that tag end we saved. I'll grab it with both hands and bring it on the inside of our bobbin, and then we're just going to hit that hook bend, and then I'm going to roll that thread into one hand, and I'm going to bring both pieces right up through those tails. And when I pull it forward, it is going to splay out those tails to that 60-degree angle that we want. And oops, I got this little tail flying around here. Give me just a second. There we go. Back into your home. And then I'm just going to roll the thread right over the top to capture it a couple times. And you'll see how nice that does at splaying that tail out. And you don't need a ton of wraps here, just enough to have that thread kind of right down the center there, and then we're going to go ahead and trim that out. So now we've got the bend that we want on those tails. I'm just going to kind of roll down and sort of finagle them into position. And the reason that I want to kind of make this perfect is because for the next step, we're going to load up a little bit of UV knot sense, or in this case bone dry, and we're going to just tap it right on the back of the fly and right on the edge of those tails. We don't want a ton of it, but just enough to kind of sink into the thread there and hold our tails in place. And I'm going to grab my UV light, and we're going to hit it, make sure that stuff cures really nice. And those tails are not going to move on us anymore, which I think is super important for a fly that's so small. You want to try to keep those tails in position. They're very natural when these Tricos land on the water, and I'm not trying to have something that looks unnatural with the tails smashed together. So as far as the next step goes, we're going to grab some of this beaver dubbing, and this is gray and Adams gray beaver dubbing. And what I want to do is kind of pull out these guard hairs. So beaver dubbing has a lot of very thick hairs, and I'm going to pull those out and get to this under fur. And the point is to kind of have a very loose, very fine dubbing noodle on our thread here. So the guard hairs are not going to help us do that. So we're going to kind of get those out of the way. And then we'll just sort of start peeling them apart to sort of line up all of this under fur so that it's all kind of running the same direction. And then pull out a few more of the guard hairs, and then I will start dubbing up the thread here to build the body of the fly. All right, so we're going to build a nice little tight rope noodle here. I think I've got about 3 inches of beaver dubbing on this. Not any guard hairs, you can tell, very, very tight. And then what I'm going to do is just do 2 quick wraps around the back of the hook to kind of start this dubbing noodle. Now this is where things get fun. You're going to make a loop with your finger and tie the thread at about the 80% point at the front of the hook. So I'm going to go ahead and tie that off so nothing can move. I'm going to spin my bobbin to make it a tight thread. And then what I'm going to do is get my scissors and I'm going to cut that loop free. So now I've got this excess line with my noodle on it, and I'm going to grab a hackle plier, and I'm just going to grab the very end of that dubbing noodle, and I'm going to make sure I have a really nice tight closed down hackle plier. And then we have this kind of dubbing spinner, if you will. It's got a little hook on it, and it's meant to kind of spin dubbing up tightly. I'm going to hook that onto this ring on the back of the hackle plier, and I'm going to start spinning it. Now, if you have enough room on your table, your vise is high enough, you can just spin it underneath. I do not, so I'm going to pull it to myself and just spin the bottom of this, and we are going to cord this up nice and tight. So the idea is to build a very tight rope, and that beaver dubbing is just going to get tighter and tighter as we go, and we want to have this for segmentation. So this is going to give us the nice little segmentation you see on a Trico. Here in Colorado, the ones that I've seen lately, they're gray with little tiny black segmentations in them, and this could not be a better imitation of that. So once we have got it kind of corded up how we'd like, we are going to start moving that cord forward on the hook, and we're going to go all the way up to our thread up here at the front of the hook. And then we will go ahead and use the thread to tie that back down. All right, so now that we have this nice segmented body and our thread is about that 80% point of the hook, maybe a little further back here than I want to be, but I think it's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some CDC puff. And I'm just going to get those fibers kind of facing forward. I'm going to do a couple loose wraps here just to kind of hold it in place. And then we're going to snip out this back end. And then I'm going to bring that puff backwards and start wrapping in front. And this is going to sort of stand that puff up a little bit and give us our emergent, wing case. And then I'm going to try to do a wrap behind and really kind of stand it up a bit more. And then it is time to add a little bit more dubbing. So I'm going to go back to that under fur for the beaver dubbing. And we're going to build another short noodle. This one's going to be a little bit shorter than the first, maybe an inch or so. But again, just focusing on making a really fine and tight dubbing noodle because we don't need a lot here. We don't want too much on this fly. So just spinning that up here. You can wet your fingers. That sometimes helps get it a little tighter, or you can use a dubbing wax. And then I'm going to bring it in front of the puff and build up the head of the fly a little bit, and then we're going to come right behind, and that is the wrap that really stands up that puff. And then I'm going to bring it back forward, and if you got a little too much on it, you can just bring it down and pick it off with your fingers. And I would say we have a beautiful looking RS2 here, so I'm ready to grab my whip finish tool and start whip finishing right behind the eye. 1, 2, 3. And we'll pull that thing tight and cinch it down, and then we're going to go ahead and cut it off clean here. And that is your basic RS2. What we want to do is just trim up this puff a little bit. I think it's about perfect, but we want to go at a down angle towards the back of the fly, and we want the puff to be about half the length of the body. So maybe a little bit off of there, nothing too much. Could have left it a lot longer, but that essentially is what you want for an RS2, is just a little emergent wing bud and splayed out tail there, and an absolutely beautiful segmented body This is going to absolutely crush fish for you. If you've never fished an RS2 before, you could tie this in a bunch of different colors, but black and gray are by far my favorites, and you will do well just about anywhere during a Trico hatch with an RS2. That is the fly for the day. If you guys have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. And also let me know if there's other flies you want me to tie. I would love to tie those up. And before you go, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us extend our reach. And we love to have more people watching these videos. So thanks so much for your time, and we will catch you in the next episode of Catching Colorado.
Thanks for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in more relatable content, you can check out these videos right here. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you can stay updated on our next adventures.